Reddit Martian back with another tip-top video for you. r/AskReddit. Those that are bilingual, what have you heard from others that don't realize you can understand them? This is NSFW. My mother tongue is Arabic. I look very Middle Eastern, but I speak very decent Russian, and this was in Dubai. Was in an elevator in a fancy hotel and a Russian speaking couple walk in. The lady was visibly upset. The guy was apologizing and saying something along the lines of "Common, was it that bad?" and the lady says, "I told you before not to come in my mouth." I couldn't help it and laughed. Told them I could understand and apologized. The lady looked at me in horror and disbelief as the guy laughed his butt off. That was an awkward wait till I hopped off the elevator. Edit. Haha, changed my last sentence a bit thanks to some who were kind of enough to point out my unintentional pun. ASL for many years. Had a deaf best friend and learned for him. Downtown PDX one afternoon, waiting on the max. Guy walks up and starts talking in what I assumed was the most broken English I'd ever heard. After a few "I'm sorry, man, can't help," he signs. The sign. For sign. Phone goes in my pocket. Water bottle set down. I'm ready to help. Mathurdaker asked me if I knew where to get H. Very innocent comment towards my dad, but regardless, they clearly didn't think I could understand them. I once overheard some middle-aged guys say that my dad looks like the oldest kid from the Brady Bunch if he grew up in Spanish. My dad was down the aisle getting something and I was manning the cart and they were semi near me. I just start laughing because my mom had a crush on Greg from the Brady Bunch as a kid. So it was perfect. Even my dad's name is Greg. No one was offended, but the guys did look scared for a minute. It happens to me all the time because I look Middle Eastern when I'm really Hispanic. I was working at a coffee shop and two Hispanic men came in talking mad shit about our food and confused about the menu. Right in front of me, the guy's like, "Let's ask this guy. What's this camel gonna know about anything here?" I guess camel is a slur for Middle Eastern or something. I responded in Spanish and it was backpedal o'clock. I'm ethnically Chinese but grew up learning German. I was in Germany for student exchange and attended a dorm party one night. Two German guys at the party started flirting with me and openly discussed who would be able to sleep with me that night. Played dumb and rejected both their advances. A week later at another party, I conversed with other friends in fluent German in front of them. Their expressions were priceless. Sometimes my students forget I speak Russian and start saying stuff that is way inappropriate for English class. The best was when this one boy, who always finishes his work early and fidgets around with things, was pretending to swallow a pencil. Another boy, who thinks he's very funny, said in Russian, "I always knew you could deep throat." The kid turned a beautiful color when I reminded him I could understand. I took a youth group to Six Flags. We had extra tickets from a couple of no-shows, so I decided to scalp them. A Korean family walked up and I made my pitch. They conferred together in Korean. I'm a white guy, but I lived in rural Korea for a year and bargained with a lot of shopkeepers. So I knew their counteroffer and what they were willing to pay before they announced it in English. I work in the utility industry. I had a guy I was working with trying to get new service to his residence. During one of our meetings, he was on his cell phone when I got there. He continued talking for a few minutes, then said something along the lines of, "I've got to go. That stupid butt white boy is here." He was laughing on the phone, then looked at me. The look on my face must have told him I understood everything he said, because he got stone sober professional. In high school I spoke Spanish fairly well. It was not common for that time and for my area. A family was buying groceries, and as I was ringing up the items, the father said he has not seen the stuff on the bottom. Don't get it. I rang up what was on the belt and sat there. After a few moments I asked about the stuff on the bottom. They would not look at me for the next 2 minutes or so of the transaction. Had a customer speaking Korean and I heard them say the coffee was good and I said thank you in Korean. They were super nice and tipped more than I thought they should have. Not many wholesome responses here. Nice. I was sitting in an Uber pool. 2 Korean guys from a music school were in the back seat while I was in the front. They were discussing sex at first, but then they started talking about women in a super disparaging way. Things like you have to try a white girl at least once. They're different. If you just play music for them, they'll take their clothes off, except the rated R version. The Uber algorithm decided I should be dropped off first. The one asked his friend, "Where are we going?" in Korean. I answered in English, "He's dropping me off first." They said "Oh" in unison, then quickly changed the subject to "Hey, have you eaten yet, LMAO?" I'm French. I was in New York City, on top of the Empire State Building, and a young couple was standing next to me admiring the view. The guy turns to his girlfriend and says in French, "I need to shirt so bad." I couldn't not laugh. The language of romance. On the tram in Munich, I heard some drunk American tourist talking about how she didn't realize some guy had left a condom inside her for a few days. I didn't have the heart to tell her that like 90% of the people there could understand her. Employees at the Asian market don't think I know Mandarin. They talk some mad shit about everyone shopping there, and they some racist MFs. I hear watch the black ones, they steal quite often, and they comment on people's weight a lot. I'm half Japanese, and dude, Asians are the most racist groups of people I've ever run across in any walk of life, ever. Used to teach in Korea in a fairly small town. Some kids I taught told me about their grandma. She saw a black man at the train station and muttered at him, in Korean, to go wash his skin. She, of course, assumed there was no way he spoke Korean, but he immediately answered back, in Korean, "Don't hate, grandmother." She was so shocked and embarrassed she just stood up and left the station. Took the afternoon train instead. Hard to describe, but I thought it was adorable. I was at a weekend retreat for people studying sign language. It was held at a residential school for the deaf, and the children were away at home, but a few teenagers were hanging around. A couple of the teen boys were trying to flirt with a girl. I wasn't paying close attention, and I'm not fluent anyway, but I could tell one boy was asking the other boy to talk to the girl for him, probably because he was too shy to talk to her himself. Finally I oversaw. The boy asked her, "What is your weight?" The girl looked confused and a little disgusted. He repeated the question. The first boy slapped the second boy's hands away and emphatically signed, "What is your name?" The girl was happy enough to answer that, and I was glad none of them could hear me laugh out loud. My cousin is deaf and she cannot differentiate between people screaming and laughing, so you may have looked like you just screamed at the top of your lungs. Strangers in my city. They were German and I am half German, half Italian. I live in Italy, guys. And they asked me in English where they had to go to reach the city center. I told them where, in English again, and then put my headphones on. But I could hear them say, "Look, I told you, not every young person is bad." For example, this girl, she could have ignored us, but she helped us. In German, they were an old couple. I love these two. American who works abroad. It always baffles me how some American tourists seem to think that nobody else in the world speaks English. The one that comes to mind was at a train stop where some tourists who were clearly American were talking about how smelly everyone in the country was. Tourist A mentioned that Tourist B should keep her voice down, and Tourist B replied, "Why? None of them know what I'm saying." A guy standing behind them piped up with something like, "Pretty much all of us speak English." The tourists' faces dropped and they were silent until the train came. It was excellent. Edit, this was in Argentina, for those asking. So not me, but a friend of mine. So he is a manager in a kitchen, and when he got this sweet gig in a new kitchen, it was like 90% Cuban women. Now my friend is straight up Irish, red hair, pale skin with freckles, green eyes, totally a white boy. His mother though was a Spanish teacher and raised him to speak fluent Castilian Spanish. Well, for his first 2 weeks the ladies talked a lot of smack about him in Spanish to each other and totally dissed him non-stop. He decided to let it roll, and when the 2 weeks was up he held a big meeting with them all to go over the changes he was gonna make. He held the whole meeting in Spanish and he said every woman's face just dropped and went bright red. Lol, needless to say they stopped talking smack in Spanish. Edit. Obligatory thank you for the silver and upvotes. I started dating a girl and decided I'd learn her language, Punjabi. But I obviously didn't tell her because I wanted to keep it a surprise. Anyways, that's how I found out she was cheating on me, because I overheard her conversation with her friend. 8 months of effort gone in vain. An additional language is never in vain, mate. And kudos for the effort. Do you know what you are? That's right, you're a champ. Thanks for watching. Like and share if you enjoyed. Don't forget the bell. Subscribe for more videos. See you soon, Martians.